Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk Midlife Crisis. I'm your host, Tracy. Unfortunately, Ashley isn't able to join us today. Pull up your chair for your seat at the table as we talk about looking at life through a different lens, discussing preventative healthcare during midlife, and the evermost thought-provoking question about how we perceive and approach mortality. Here's the question. Given the choice, would you want to know when you're going to die beforehand or suddenly die without warning? I don't know about you, but I've pretty much trashed my body my entire life. I've always been thin, never having to worry about my weight, my diet. I eat no veggies at all. I live primarily on protein, carbs, and lots of sugar. I've always worshiped the sun. I drink, not a lot, but I drink. I like an occasional cocktail or a happy hour with my gal pals. I've smoked for 40 years before I finally quit. Although, full transparency, I have a cigarette from time to time, but I don't smoke a pack a day like I used to. And now here I am later in life, and I'm fearing the consequences of all of my past decisions and actions and choices. And so here's what happened, during the course of the last month or so. I wasn't feeling well prior, and I wasn't breathing good. I do have COPD from my years of smoking. So my primary care doctor sent me to a pulmonologist. Immediately upon my first exam with the doctor, she said she was sending me to get a CT scan to check for lung cancer. When she told me that, I don't know. I think I was in shock. And those exact moments became very, very surreal for me, combined with crippling fear of the whole C word being mentioned. But then denial set in immediately. So she sent me for a CT scan, and I went. And for those of you who have never had a CT scan, it's kind of like a donut. You lay down on a table and they kind of push you through this donut. So you're not enclosed in any kind of machine at all. So no fear of, claustrophobic you would have if you were to get a CT scan. The whole thing was very, very quick. I probably spent more time getting undressed and putting the gown on and then getting dressed back into my clothes out of the gown when it was done than I actually did while I was taking the CT scan. And I was just dying to know what it showed. And I know that the technicians aren't allowed to tell you, but I also know that they do this every day and all the time. So they probably have a good idea of what they're seeing on the screen. So as I was getting up from my CT scan and the technician was walking around to open the door and direct me back to the room where I change, I was looking at him. I was trying to look at him right in the eyes to get a reaction, to see if there was anything that I could see from his face or his, body language or, trying to look deep into his soul just to see what he just saw. But I couldn't read anything. So I went back and got in my clothes and left. Several days later, it was the following week, I go back to the doctor and she tells me that there are 3 spots on my lungs and that the concern is I had a test done back in 2019 and where it showed the same 3 spots. However, now the spots have grown. But she said they've only grown a very, very, very small amount, and went on to further say that she thought that one of the spots that was the largest, and she kind of drew it with her pen on a piece of paper, was about the size of maybe a small BB. And she didn't think that they would be able to biopsy it. And she gave me my 3 options. The first option is don't do anything, come back in 3 months. She says, I absolutely don't recommend that. The second option is to try to do a biopsy. And the third option is to go for a more invasive scan where they inject dye into you. And if the dye sticks to a particular spot or location and then turns bright red, then there's a good chance that it's cancer, and we move forward from there. So as she tells me this, tears are running down my face. However, the weekend, my appointment with her was on a Monday. It was last Monday. And the weekend prior to that, I was holding up fine. I was living in denial. But the weekend prior to my appointment with her was just true hell, where I was seriously thinking about my own mortality and the fear of going in and them saying, like, you have, it's stage 4, it's metastasized and all of this. So the diagnosis or the results from my initial scan didn't seem to reflect that extensive severity that I had imagined for days leading up to this appointment. It surely wasn't what I wanted to hear, right? And tears were just running down my face, and I was asking questions, is it treatable? And she's like, well, absolutely. And she holds up her cell phone and says, I have people on speed dial. And I said, well, what would the, treatment entail? Is it chemo? Is it radiation? Because those are things I think of when I think of cancer and treatment. And she just looked at me, and it's almost been a week now since that appointment. And I still don't know what the look meant. Does it mean like, of course? Does it mean like, I am a pulmonologist? I'm not an oncologist. I still don't know what that look meant, but it couldn't have been good. So now, next week on Wednesday, I go for a more extensive scan where they, shoot the dye in you and everything. And I did choose number 3, because I thought, it's maybe if it is the C word, then I have time, for treatment. And at least my days aren't, I shouldn't say, it wasn't as immediate of a situation upon, death, perhaps as what I was initially fearing the diagnosis would be, or prognosis. But definitely, like I said, wasn't what I wanted to hear. So next week I go for an appointment to shoot the dye in to see if anything turns bright red. But then, of course, what do you do after that? Should it turn red? I hadn't really got that far, because in my mind, it's been 4 years and it's barely growing. Was the first test accurate? Did I just do further lung damage? Because I have had bouts of, smoking again, and, which would have maybe just further damaged my lungs, right? Maybe it's not the C word, the ultimate, what enters my mind is the ultimate death sentence. But definitely it opened up my eyes. So I'm getting ready to go to my fabulous, fabulous, exciting trip to Italy. And I text my friend that I'm going with, and she kept asking me, how did it go? How did your CT scan go? And I didn't respond. And finally I sent her a response, and I said, not good. I have to have further tests, but I'll know the day before we leave for Italy. And she said, well, why don't you push it back? Why would you want to know before you leave? And so this weekend I've been thinking about it. And what I've come up with is that I'm looking at life now through a different lens. And oftentimes in life, I think we've had, friends, loved ones, family members pass away, maybe suddenly, without warning. That makes you think about your own mortality, right? And how quickly, life can end at a blink of an eye or a snap of the fingers, with a car accident or anything suddenly. One of my cousin, my beloved cousin, Christy, died at a very young age from a brain aneurysm. And it was just so shocking and sudden. And at those times, you think about your own mortality and how, short life is and, live it to, live every moment as if, it's your last moment. But unfortunately, it feels to me, at least in my experience, that that's only been short lived, right? Maybe it's a day or a week or even a month, depending on, the tragic loss that you're going through. But you think about it and you kind of look at life through a different lens, but it's generally short lived. So now, as I am looking at life through a different lens, I'm hopeful that this feeling and way of living continues on a little bit longer than a day, a week, or a month. So if I go back and they say, it's not cancer, Tracy, how long am I going to hold on to this view of life that right now is like rosy colored glasses and everything is, I'm just enjoying every moment of everything and everyone. And I don't even dislike my job right now. Those daily, just the simple things, right? And my children and my grandchildren, how much I just want to cherish every moment. And I'm viewing it in a different way, with more reality, right? Because the reality is we're all going to die someday. But when you're in your midlife and you're, on that downhill run, to the end, it seems to go so much quicker. So yes, I do want to know. I want to know now, because I feel that being preventative means that, I might be able to catch it and definitely have options available and treatments available to extend my life. But I'd rather know now than I think the thought of the unknown, it can often be more scary than knowing the reality and trying to come up with a plan. But I think everyone is different. But I also think that now more than ever, when you're in your midlife, preventative care is so important. Not only for those people like me who've trashed their bodies their entire life, but, things happen, bad things happen too, and unhealthy things happen to healthy people too, which kind of isn't fair and has never made sense, but it's the truth and it is the reality. So I think that preventative care is important. If you have the opportunity to catch something early on, it's got to be much better, right, than waiting until it's literally and truly your death sentence, which unfortunately has happened to me with two of my dearest and closest friends over this past year. And it's been very, very difficult for me to deal with those losses. And again, helped me look at life through a different lens. But unfortunately, it wasn't as long as I would have hoped before the whole world just revolved back into its old ways. And the busyness of everything, whether it be work and children or, we multitask. We have, so much these days, right? That is going on, so much on our plates, so much that you do. And you get right back into that without, and you lose that lens. It's almost like a click of a camera shutter. Click, click. It's on. And then just as quickly, click, click, it can be off. And you're just back in the hamster wheel, right? Of life. But I've had the opportunity to pause, clearly make sure my affairs are in order, which I kind of thought they were, but now realizing that they're not, and to think about, my own mortality. One of the things that I did think about in that very long weekend, last weekend before my doctor's appointment was, after my passing, like wanting to make sure everything is a smooth transition for my children who are going to be totally distraught. And I thought one of those things that I could help take off of their plate, and that might be worthwhile, would be a living memorial. So instead of waiting until after I pass to have some sort of a celebration of life, to do it while I'm still living. But fortunately, the news that I received at the doctor last week didn't seem to indicate that there was going to be any kind of a quick passing. But of course, a lot is based upon further testing and results, as well as treatment, which I will continue to share with you as I go through this journey. But I think something that, is super important that we need to talk about during our midlife is preventative health care. I never used to do mammograms every year. I do that. I have my blood work taken regularly. I take my medication as I'm supposed to, which is blood pressure medication, high blood pressure medication, which when I was younger, I kind of took with a grain of salt and wasn't really, as religious about taking it as I am these days. But I try to do everything I can to, be preventative as far as my health is concerned. And I think that a really, really important part of that is to go for your wellness checkups and your annuals and, have blood work drawn. And my primary care guy, I'm sure he's actually told me before that I stress him out when he has to come see me, when he knows I'm his patient in that room, because when he orders me blood tests, I said, don't just tell me what my vitamin levels are and my cholesterol levels. I want to know, do I have cancer? If you're going to take my blood, run tests that are going to be important for me, that I'm concerned about and I want to know about. So they do take a couple of vials of blood now when I go, but it's okay because it just kind of sets my mind at ease and also helps be preventative, because if something does show up outside of, me having a high, or a deficiency in vitamin D, maybe, my white blood cell count is off, or, something more serious is what I was hoping that they would test for. And I go, and just by asking for it, they do that. And then there's also the whole, outside of Western medicine, there's alternatives. I think life's all about alternatives, but I think by testing and trying to be as preventative as you can, and there are a lot of options. So, if you don't want a colonoscopy, you can, have different tests taken. That checks for problems, and isn't so evasive, if you will, which I'm one of those people, by the way. But I, again, believe in preventative health care, because I want to see my grandchildren grow up. That's something that, I've been thinking about a lot lately. And if I do have the choice and it's based upon my decisions, I do want to make sure that I make good decisions now. I'm not going to look in the rearview mirror of what I've done to my body for the last 40 years, because all the could haves and would haves and should haves are out the door, out the window, right? No looking in the rearview mirror. But what I can do is moving forward, make the right choices, and follow up with those choices and do what I can to become healthier today for a longer lasting life. Well, that wraps it up for today, guys. Thank you for joining us on Let's Talk Midlife Crisis. Embrace the change. Join the conversation on our website or Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube channels. Listen to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon products, iHeart, or wherever you tune in for your listening pleasures. Thank you so much. Join us next week.